my way into a church that I visit when I go away. And I was going to the late service, so as I was going in, people were coming out. The people that were coming out were saying, "Don't go in there. You don't want to hear what's going to be said there this morning. Don't go in. It's nothing but bad news. Don't go in there. You don't want to hear." Well, I already knew what the news was, so I wasn't afraid. But people around me were a bit concerned and were sure they wanted to go in. And the reason the people at the early service were so distressed was that their longtime priest, Father Peter Fenty, was announcing that he was leaving Barbados and leaving their parish and coming to Canada. People were extremely distraught, as you can imagine. So they even know Bishop Fenty will know what a loss he would be in any place at any time. So the people felt maybe if you didn't go in and didn't hear the bad news, maybe it wouldn't be real. And sometimes we feel like that too. You know, we think if we just don't watch the news, as I'm starting to get ready to do, we won't have to hear about the knifings and the shootings and the nothing but bad news. We think if we ignore it, we will just live somewhere else. But the writer of the letter to the Ephesians today tells us that we as Christians can never operate like that. We have to be alert. We have to pay attention. Because the writer warns us that we think evil is somewhere out there and can be ignored. We do that at our peril. He tells us that the real fight against evil at that time and at our time was not in the outside world. He said that evil was present in the most heavenly of places, the church. It's been a rough month for the church. We've all seen the headlines. We've all had to acknowledge the headlines. And some of us get very comfortable and we think smugly, "Oh, that's those Roman Catholics. That's those priests down in Pennsylvania. That's those priests in Ireland. It's them over there. It's not us." I can tell you as someone who worked as the CAO of the synod in the diocese, that that's not the case. That we in the Anglican Church, in this diocese and in every other diocese and every other denomination and every other church, has to look to itself and accept responsibility for the fact that many people in our churches use their power and authority, and not just exercise power and authority, but to physically and spiritually and mentally and sexually hurt other people. And we think if we think that it's over or it's gone away or it's back in history, that it's gone. But I can tell you as someone who has worked in the diocese that that's not the case. I have seen colleagues who I would think of as the best of people who revealed as quite the opposite. And we're warned that if we ignore these things, if we think that's something I don't want to hear about in church, or I don't want to hear about anywhere, that we allow evil to continue to have its hold. Because evil works in two ways in the church. It works to, in the first instance, hurt those who are directly affected. But then it goes on in the secondary way to hurt those who want to ignore it, cover it up, or forget about it. And by addition, it hurts the faith of those of us who come faithfully to church and want it to be a place of peace and joy and respite and worship and wonderful music. There aren't any guarantees that the church is a better place than the outside world. Solomon, in his prayer for his temple today, his great, beautiful temple, said, "Lord, I want you to guarantee that whenever anyone comes here to pray, you will hear what they say and respond." And the pieces that are absent from this long reading, he says, "And I want you to guarantee that if there's famine, pestilence, locusts, mildew, blight, plague, that if people come here to pray, you'll eradicate those too. And I want you to guarantee to me," he says, "that my family will get what you promised, that our family will go on forever." Well, we know God operate that way. We know that God doesn't give us those guarantees. We know that Solomon was the second last of his line. That in fact, after his son, the unified country that he was so proud of would fall apart because of his family's sins. God doesn't give us a guarantee that if we pray and in his temple, and if we build a beautiful building, all will be well. Because we are fallen, sinful human beings. Our sin may not be direct, but our sin can be complicit if we refuse to think about evil or we try to cover it up. The hard saying for the disciples today was not that Jesus was the bread of life. The hard saying, the difficult saying, was that they had to become like Jesus in order to receive the kingdom of God. The hard saying wasn't that intellectually they couldn't make it make sense. It was that morally they had such a high standard to attain to. And many of them just gave up. And many Christians give up. We know that. Many Christians give up because they come to church wanting something from Jesus, like the Galileans did. But after they get the bread, after they get what they've asked for, they don't want to have to give anything back. Jesus' followers weren't interested in take up your cross and follow me. Those who will come after me will have to give up mother, father, sister, brother, and suffer. They thought, no, we just came for the bread, and this was a good time. But if there's bad times ahead, we're not interested. It's difficult to be a disciple of Jesus Christ in this time as it was in that time. The church in that time faced persecution. It faced people who were in power and authority lording it over the average Joe and pushing them out. And that's what Ephesians is talking about today. So what can we do? I'll tell you one thing. In all the work that I had to do with the diocese, I never faced as much opposition. And Susan is already laughing because she knows where I'm going with this. I never faced as much opposition as telling people that we have a sexual misconduct policy that they had to read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest. That if they wanted to hold a position of trust and authority in the church, they had to do what, Susan? They had to have a police records check. People's immediate response was, I'm an honest person. I'm a good person. I'm volunteering for this job. Why should I have to do that? Well, holding a position of power and authority and representing Jesus Christ in his church or in his community is not a gift. It's not a gift. It's a privilege. It's a calling. It's a vocation. And our responsibility to the vulnerable people in our churches and in our society is to do everything we can as individuals and as a corporate structure to ensure that we have done everything that we can do to make the church a safe place for everyone. We can't undo things that have been done. And the letter to the Ephesians warns us today, it's an ongoing battle. It wasn't back then, it isn't over, and it won't be over tomorrow. But we have to take on those things, put on that armor, use those tools that are available to us to make sure that we're proactive, that we're alert, that we're aware, that we are honest, that we are accepting the fact that evil is a presence. It's present in our church and in our world, and we ignore it at our peril. So we always have a choice. We can put on that full armor of God. We can wade into that battle, or we can ignore it and be on the side of evil. as I can be, because that's what I believe. We have the tools, we have the mental capacity, we have the intellect, and we have the will. That's what our society is asking the church now. And it's asking each one of us, not just a bishop, not just a priest, not just a person who's responsible for screening in our parish. It's asking each and every one of us, are we willing to be honest and open and real about the God we serve, fallen, evil, sinful people that we all are, and the requirements of discipleship? As the disciples say to Jesus today, where else can we go?